Romulus space station.
What the fuck was that? Young?
Stop playing around, man. Just get up.
I'm not playing around. There's something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
I don't know. There's just something in the fucking water. Run.
This week on Talking About the Movies, we're taking you back to the place where no one can hear you scream in space, when we team up with Ridley Scott and the director of Evil Dead and Don't Breathe to take you in between the events of Alien and Aliens with Alien Romulus. We'll take a look at that movie, plus...
Legend has it that there's this massive treasure hidden in some secret vault. And if you go hunting for it, you'd better take any help you can get. Because it's on the weirdest, most dangerous dumpster fire of a world in the universe. God, I hate this planet.
God, I hate this movie, which is probably what everybody else is saying about this film. It's the infamous flop Borderlands, directed by Eli Roth, produced by Avi Arad, and featuring Cate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, and Jamie Lee Curtis among its cast. Is it really as bad as everyone says it is? Yes, it is. I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat it with you. It's a double feature this week on Talking About the Movies. And welcome to Talking About the Movies, where of course we talk about the biggest new releases of the weekend, and last weekend too. We're going to take a look at two movies this week, one good, one bad, so you get a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. We'll take a look at Alien and Romulus, and also last weekend's Borderlands. Is it really as bad as people have said it is? Yes, it is, but we'll get to that one a little bit later on in the show. But in the meantime, let's talk about the biggest new release of this weekend, and that is, of course, Alien Romulus. So Alien Romulus takes place in between the events of the original Alien from 1979 and James Cameron's Aliens, and it follows a group of young space colonists in pursuit of better life conditions to encounter hostile creatures while scavenging a derelict space station. And to kind of sum up the Alien movies in general, the first one I think is a classic movie. I've done a long-form review of that movie before when it came out earlier in the year, so if you want to go check it out, I'll leave the link to it in the corner. But Aliens, James Cameron's movie, great film, great sequel, somehow even better than the original. Not only just taking the film from a horror movie aspect, and adding another level to it by making it kind of an action movie at the same time. I mean, those are the two easily the best movies in the series, no question about it. Alien 3 is where the downfall begins, and despite David Fincher directing it, in his first directorial effort, the script was a mess from the beginning. The behind-the-scenes production problems show on the big screen, and yeah, it's not a great movie. Still has some memorable moments to it, but yeah. And if you thought that was bad, Alien Resurrection it's a complete mess of a movie. Like, if you thought Alien 3 was bad, somebody said, wait until you see what we do with Alien Resurrection, which actually ties back into this movie, which we'll get to in a little bit. I guess Alien vs. Predator is kind of connected to this, but I'll say this. At the time when it came out, it was rightfully panned. It was not a good movie, but I will admit, as time has gone on, I do like the movie once we get rid of the human characters. Once it's just Sanaa Lathan and the Predator going up against the Alien, and it's mostly silent for the most part, that's where the movie really begins to shine. So yeah, I'd say it's a good movie, but you gotta get through a lot of bad stuff in the beginning. Alien vs. Predator Requiem is just a bad movie in general. It's a movie that tries to go back to the R-rated aspect of both Alien and Predator, and yeah, it doesn't work because you have a story that could be interesting, having the Alien and Predator fighting on Earth, but they're not really doing anything, and the human characters are not interesting whatsoever. And then we get to Prometheus, which, yeah, I never liked from the beginning. It was a movie that was my first real opportunity to see Ridley Scott basically, like, I feel like felt like he was coasting along with his career at that point, and like the movies he was making were not that great. And Prometheus just felt like a self-congratulatory movie, like it was congratulating itself on a good job before the movie even came out. Granted, there are some good moments in there, but when they do stupid stuff like the reveal of Waylon being alive after that great scene where Noomi Rapace is trying to get the face hugger out of her stomach and all that. Like, that's a great scene, and then it just completely gets ruined when you realize that Guy Ritchie's Waylon character is still alive, even though he's supposed to be dead. And once that happens, it just goes careening downhill after that, and then, yeah, it's a big disappointment of a film. And Alien Covenant, yeah, even bigger of a disappointment because it's just doing the same thing we've seen with the Alien movies beforehand. And yeah, it was one of the worst movies of that year. So going into this, there was a little bit of skepticism, but I did like the fact that we are getting a different director behind this. This is Fede Alvarez, who did Don't Breathe and Evil Dead. A well-known director, maybe not quite to the level of somebody like Mike Flanagan, who I think has done a very good job of handling these horror movies over the last couple of years. He's probably the best horror director we have right now, but Fede Alvarez is probably a close second right now. And you know, you could tell that he loved the Alien movies. I saw the little intro in the beginning of the Alien re-release this year with Ridley Scott. And the trailers for it definitely looked very promising and looked like something very bleak and different. And it looked like it was taking its back to its roots. And so that's what I got a little bit excited for that one. But you know, I had my heart broken with the other Alien movies after Alien 3. After Alien 3 let me down. So yeah, I went in optimistic, but expecting mostly another big disappointment in the end, which is basically what I was going into it. But I will say this. For the first 2/3 of the movie, it was working. The third act, which has been like the biggest talking point of the movie ever since it's come out, it's good, but yeah, I can definitely see a lot of the problems that people have with it, and we'll get to that as we move along here, but yeah, I thought the movie was really good. Overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I would definitely say it's the best Alien sequel we've gotten since Aliens, which really has not doesn't say a whole lot, but this movie definitely took the series back to its roots. You definitely felt like you were back like you were watching the Ridley Scott movie again. The practical effects are very much there. You can definitely tell that these sets were there. It felt like a film that they really did put a lot of effort into it. And it was really good. It was really engaging. It was really entertaining. It was really terrifying at times. Like, there's a lot of great scenes involving these face huggers. They make the face huggers much more threatening than you could possibly imagine in this movie. The death scenes are pretty cool too. The way they use the face huggers, the chest bursters, and all that stuff to like get them out there. Like, that is I think I said in Prometheus that was the face hugger inside of something with a chest burster. But yeah, my apologies for that. But this is off the cuff stuff I'm doing here, but like I was saying, like, they make these things really terrifying in the movie, and the film just has this dark atmospheric tone to it that just it fits with Alien, and you know, you expect that with a good Alien movie. Like, you want to get behind these characters too. You do get behind the characters a lot. Kaylee Spaney, who was in Priscilla, she was just in Civil War. I think she's really becoming one of our great leading actresses going forward. She's really good in the movie. I like Isabel Merced in here, David Johnson, Archie Renault, Spike Farron. They're well-written characters. They're not just the stock characters that you expect to die, that you want them to die as quickly as possible. And, I mean, for the most part, they are very likable characters, and you do want to see them accomplish their mission and get the hell out of there before this thing kills them. And this film does take a lot of chances with some of the stuff they work with here. When it is CG, it's done very well. There's one scene in particular that I thought was really cool where, like, you have the aliens' acid blood all over the place, and they're all in zero gravity, and they have to avoid hitting the acid blood. And, you know, it's a very tension-filled scene, a very cool-looking scene in general, and it just shows you what the Alien series used to be like. And you could tell Ridley Scott had a lot of influence over the movie here, but it still feels like a refreshing new feel with Alvarez coming into play here. Now, with that said, though, and I will before I get to some of the negatives here, I like the music too. Benjamin Wallfish, who did the Shazam movies, he did the It movies. I mean, he does a very good job of creating a very good and intense score for this movie that makes it stand out on its own. It doesn't feel like they're recopying the same beats and notes from the original Alien. But with that said, though, there are some flaws to the movie. A lot of notable flaws, specifically with the third act. And let's just say that, I'm just going to say this. They do something that is very similar to what they did in last year's The Flash. And if you remember what I said about The Flash last year, I thought that was one of the worst movies of the year. And what they did with the deep faking and all that stuff, that pushed me to the level where I just had to say that it was the worst movie I saw last year. A lot of that is in this third act, where they bring back a character from the original Alien. I'm not going to say who it is, I'm not going to spoil or anything, but yeah, I'd be remiss to say that definitely was definitely a wrong move on the part of the movie, and it almost ruined the ebb and flow of the movie for me, because really, once they bring that character in here, unfortunately, the movie starts to taper off a little bit. The third act is when this is supposed to be building up to this big epic showdown at the end, and really, it just is. I mean, I liked it, but it just definitely didn't felt like it lost a lot of the muster as soon as they bring this element into the storyline. And yeah, it's taking a lot from Alien Resurrection, one of the worst of the Alien movies in general. If you want to give it some credit, it does it a lot better than something like Alien Resurrection tried to do. At least I got what they were trying to do here, but it definitely was the weakest part of the whole movie. And for a third act of an Alien movie to be underwhelming, that's disappointing, because the third act of Alien, the original Alien, is such a masterful class of tension, scares, and like chilling moments. Like that moment where like Ellen's trying to, she thinks she's safe, and then all of a sudden the alien lands on the ship, lands on her the escape pod, and she's trying to figure out how she's going to get this thing out of here, get this thing out of the ship, and it just leads to a great climax at the end of that movie, Aliens. That great scene where she's fighting the Queen Alien, and in that mech suit. Get away from her, you bitch. That's a great moment. That should really keep you in. The third act is really where the best moments of the Alien movies tend to happen. And then once they bring that element in there and take a lot from Resurrection, that's where the movie really takes a lot of a nosedive, and really all the fun I was having with it started to go away. I just want to say this, it didn't take my full enjoyment of the film away from me, but it definitely knocked the peg down a little bit. I mean, yeah, if that third act had been as good as the first two acts, this probably would have been one of my favorite movies of the year. But as it is, it definitely did take it down a notch, but never to the point where I wasn't not entertained by it. I was still very much overall, I came out of the movie satisfied, but I really was expecting a lot more, especially with the third act being as what it was. But like I said, it doesn't hurt the ebb and flow of the movie. I think they did a very good job of creating a fun Alien movie that takes you back to the great Alien movies in the series. Like I said, it's the best Alien sequel we've had since the second movie. I mean that is not really saying a whole lot in general, but considering that that's almost 30 years from in between really good Alien movies, that says a whole lot in general. So I got to give the movie credit for that. If the third act had been a whole lot better, I would probably give this a much higher review. But for the meantime, I am going to give it a thumbs up. I think if you go into it knowing exactly what you know from the Alien movies, and you want to see the best stuff from the Alien movies done well for a modern generation, I think this definitely will work out in your favor. I think it's a very entertaining film. Just be prepared for the third act to be a little bit underwhelming towards the end of it. I mean, like I said, I think it's going to be the biggest talking point of the movie, the big moment, the big polarizing moment that everyone's going to take away from it. But like I said, it didn't ruin the overall enjoyment of the film for me. It just knocked it down from being a great movie to just being a good movie in the end. And it's a step in the right direction. I really am curious to see what Fede Alvarez does with future Alien movies. I hope they get him to do more of these, because like, if he can do a movie this good and fix the ending a little bit, fix the ending a lot, I mean, but like, they should be able to take this series to a whole new level of excitement, and something that we hadn't seen done in a while with the Alien movies in general. So I'm really hoping that this is the beginning of something great. But like I said, prepare for the third act to be a little bit underwhelming, but for the most part, it's a good movie. I highly recommend it. Can't say the same thing about our last movie we have here, and that is Borderlands. So in Borderlands, you have Lilith, an infamous bounty hunter with a mysterious past played by Cate Blanchett, who reluctantly returns to her home Pandora, the most chaotic planet in the galaxy. Her mission is to find the missing daughter of Atlas being played by Edgar Ramirez, the universe's most powerful SOB. Lilith forms an unexpected alliance with a ragtag team of misfits, Roland, played by Kevin Hart, who's a seasoned mercenary on a mission, Tiny Tina, played by Ariana Greenblatt, a feral preteen demolitionist. Krieg, played by Florian Montino, who's Tina's muscle-bound protector. Tannis, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, the oddball scientist who's seen it all. And Claptrap, voiced by Jack Black, who's a wise-ass robot. Together, these unlikely heroes must battle an alien species and dangerous bandits to uncover one of the Pandera's most explosive secrets. The fate of the universe could be in their hands, but they'll be fighting for something more, each other. Gee, haven't heard that movie before. Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, even a little bit of Deadpool thrown in there. Yeah, this movie is, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it with you. This movie is really, really bad. I mean, this is one of the worst movies of the year. Very high up there with one of the worst movies of the year. I did not think that... I thought Argyle was going to be the top movie to really be the absolute worst of the year, but Harold and the Purple Crayon and Borderlands proved me wrong, and boy did they prove me wrong, because man, this movie was rough. Even for somebody who's never played the video games, doesn't know much about the video game characters in general, just the fact that this is just a straight up knockoff of just a really bad knockoff of Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, Deadpool, you name it. Like they are relentlessly they don't give a shit. They don't give a crap whatsoever. And like Eli Roth, man, I thought you were better than this. Like, I know you made some movies that have not been that great, but at least I could tell your heart was put into the projects in general. But man, did you really screw up on this one big time. Like this, and I think this is one of those movies that's going to be, it's going to be one of those movies that's going to be the subject of a documentary, for just the behind-the-scenes production problems in general, because I've heard a lot of stories about this movie and how bad it really is. There's this whole idea, like the whole purpose of this movie originally was supposed to be an R-rated take on the material, and then somebody decided to take the script, which was R-rated, and rewrite it as a PG-13 movie, and they re-edited the film. They shot the film as an R-rated movie, and then they had to re-edit the film down to a PG-13 caliber film, which is something that you do not do with a movie like this. You either reshoot the film from the beginning, or just not make the movie at all. And unfortunately, they went with they unfortunately didn't do that. They just went forward with it, and yeah, it suffers big time. And it's a movie that is really, really uneven. It's a terribly put together movie. It's a bad movie. It's a really, really bad movie. The set designs are granted, the set designs can look cool sometimes, and there are two elements of the cast that I did like in it. I like Cate Blanchett. I think that's going to be the one thing that everyone takes away from the movie, is that Cate Blanchett is really good, and it's Cate Blanchett. I mean, she's got 2 Academy Awards, for God's sakes. I mean, like, you expect her to at least put her effort into it, and she does. She really is one of the strongest elements of the movie. And surprisingly, Kevin Hart, Kevin Hart, you see him as the goofy comedy person here, but here he plays it more straight than you think, and it's actually kind of refreshing for him. Yeah, he's not, the character himself is not great, but the performance he's given in this definitely takes it to a level where I could say that, I'm glad I saw him in this, because I actually get to see something that he hasn't really done before up to this point. I thought he did the best job he could with it, playing a very straightforward performance, unlike what we're usually used to seeing him. Everybody else, though, is garbage. Like, there's a lot of good people involved in here. Jack Black, Edgar Ramirez, Ariana Greenblatt, Florian Montano, Gina Gershon, Jamie Lee Curtis, who I've seen in a lot better movies than this, and they're stock characters. They're stock characters. Like, one person has to be if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you know exactly what type of characters you're going to get in this movie, and they're all over the place. Like, Florian Montano's character could be the equivalent of Drax in general. Like, you have, like, Ariana Greenblatt could be the Rocket Raccoon of this universe. I guess maybe Claptrap's kind of the Groot of this universe. And it'd be fine if these characters were interesting or fun, but no, they're not. They're obnoxiously put together. I don't know if it was the script or just what Eli Roth was telling them to do, or maybe even Tim Miller, because Tim Miller came in to direct it a little bit when Eli Roth was working on Thanksgiving, and it definitely shows. Like, they don't even try to hide the fact that it's two very different directors in general. But this is a film that is just so, it's obnoxious, it's annoying, it's just ridiculously put together. The story is, and then again, this is what you get when you have somebody like Avi Arad as the producer for this. And keep in mind, Avi Arad has been known for making the genius moves anytime he's been aboard these movies. Like, he's the one that basically forced Sam Raimi to put Venom in Spider-Man 3, even though he never wanted to do it, because he said it's what the fans want, and we all saw how that went. He's also the man that said that Brat, the movie he produced, was X-Men for teenage girls. Those two things alone should be everything you need to know about how bad this movie is, about how bad this guy is as a producer. And here's what he's done since Bratz, by the way: Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the live-action Ghost in the Shell, the Venom movies, Morbius, Uncharted. Is that enough for you? Like, yeah, he's produced some good stuff here and there. Like, he's produced all the Spider-Man movies. He's produced, what else did he do? He did, I think that's it. All the Spider-Man movies, which there have been good Spider-Man movies, obviously, since then. But, no, this is the guy that's been behind some of the worst Marvel movies he ever made. Some of the worst movies ever made of the last 15 years. So, why would that continue with it? Why do you think that would continue with it? That would not continue with this movie here? Because, he's Avi Arad. He's the man that started this all with Blade back in the day. We got to give him all the credit we need. We got to give him all the creative control of this, because, yeah, screw Eli Roth, screw all the stuff he did for this movie, but yeah, it's just screw all the stuff that he's done. But you get, I'm kind of rambling on you, but you get the idea here. This movie is just such a disaster on so many levels. That expose documentary that will come out in a couple of years about the behind-the-scenes process of this has got to be legendary. I mean, this has to be crazy how this movie came to be, how this movie ended up becoming what it was. It's a movie that's so bad. I've heard comparisons to Pluto Nash. I didn't want to believe that, because Pluto Nash is one of the worst movies ever made, period. But it's definitely close. It is definitely very, very close to how bad Pluto Nash was. Pluto Nash was a bad movie, but this is definitely right up there, if not close to it. And it's just a shame, because there's possibilities for what they could do here. You could even make a rip-off Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, Deadpool movie if you wanted to. I mean, but you gotta make it funny. You gotta make these characters likable. You gotta make the action look cool. You gotta make something fun out of this, and there's just nothing of value whatsoever except the three things I mentioned: the set design, Cate Blanchett, and Kevin Hart. Those are the three things that hold the movie to some form of is the things that might be great about it. But everything else, straight up garbage. This is absolutely very high up there with one of the worst movies of the year. It'll probably give it. It's amazing how Harold and the Purple Crayon and Borderlands are at the top now of the worst movies of the year. I didn't think we'd get them back to back, but what a rough start to the month of August. So, yeah, I think you know what my rating for this movie is. Yeah, thumbs way down. Avoid this movie like the plague, please, for the love of God. There are so many better movies you could be seeing out there right now. Go see Alien Romulus. Go see Deadpool and Wolverine again. I would even say go watch Twisters, a movie that I didn't even watch, but I will tell you, it's probably more than likely better than this piece of garbage was. But yeah, I digress. So yeah, that's gonna wrap this episode up. And if you saw either Alien Romulus or Borderlands, let me know your thoughts down below. Tell me what you thought of the movie. And I think we're pretty much on another break after this, because the next big release I'm looking forward to is Beetlejuice, which comes out in early September. So that's probably the next time you'll see me on this particular show. But if you like what you saw, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Subscribe to our channels, of course. Check out what I had to say about Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, and Harold and the Purple Crayon. We'll have a link to that in the corner, as well as a playlist of some of the other episodes I've done here. And that's it. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. So with that said, see you next time, and take care.